When you think Trojan War, your mind probably jumps to Achilles, right? Or Hector, the Trojan horse, for sure. But what if I told you that the entire decade-long brutal war was basically the brainchild of just one goddess? And get this, it wasn't a god of war, it was the goddess of love. Yeah, we're gonna get into it, because the story we all think we know has this divine architect pulling all the strings from the very beginning. And her name is Aphrodite.
All right, so let's just ask the big question right up front. What really caused the Trojan War? Was it just politics, a trade squabble, or was it all about a stolen queen? I mean, the story we usually hear focuses on what the mortals did, but honestly, that's not even half of it. The real reason? Well, it's way more personal and a whole lot more powerful. And boom, here it is. The war didn't start the moment Paris ran off with Helen. No. It started the second Aphrodite promised her to him. Think about that. One single act of a goddess meddling, basically a bribe born out of pure vanity, and that's the spark that lit the fuse on one of the biggest wars in mythology.
Okay, so you've got to be wondering, right? How in the world does the goddess of love and beauty end up being the main person responsible for a 10-year meat grinder of a war? Let's break that down.
It all circles back to this one key event, the Judgment of Paris. So the story goes that Paris, a Trojan prince, has to pick the most beautiful goddess. And they all try to bribe him, of course. Hera's like, I'll make you a king over vast lands. Athena offers him unbeatable skill in battle and wisdom. But Aphrodite? Her offer was different. It wasn't about power or glory. It was about passion. She promised him the love of the most beautiful woman alive, Helen of Sparta. And, well, Paris went for it. He chose love over power, and in that single moment, he pretty much sealed Troy's doom.
And this is what's so wild about her role. She didn't just light the match and walk away. Not at all. She was in it for the long haul. She was this constant, active player in the whole thing, a die-hard protector of the Trojans. And not for some big strategic reason, but because of her personal connections. She was like the emotional core of their whole resistance, just refusing to let her team lose. And because of that, she becomes the source of all the passion, but also all of the absolute tragedy that follows.
You see, her loyalty wasn't really to the city of Troy itself. It was way more personal than that. And you can see this perfectly in her first big move on the battlefield, when she swoops in to save her favorite guy, Paris.
So, picture this. Years of brutal fighting have gone by. Both armies are exhausted. They finally agree to a truce. The whole war is going to be settled by one fight. Paris, the guy who took Helen, versus Menelaus, her husband. Winner takes all. Helen, the treasure, the whole shebang. And everybody else just gets to pack up and go home. I mean, a clean end to the war is right there on the table. But Aphrodite, the one who started all this, oh no, she is not about to let her little project get ruined by a fair fight.
And this is just incredible. Menelaus has Paris dead to rights. He's dragging him by his helmet, about to finish him off. And poof, Aphrodite steps in. First, she just snaps the chin strap on his helmet so he doesn't get choked out. Then she wraps him up in this thick magical mist so nobody can see him. After that, she literally zaps him off the battlefield and drops him right into his own bedroom. And for the final touch, she goes to Helen, who is not happy about this, and basically forces her to go be with Paris. She's making sure that romance she promised stays alive, no matter the cost.
So let's be super clear about what just happened. With that one move, Aphrodite single-handedly torpedoed a peace treaty. She basically shouted from the heavens that keeping this one couple together was more important to her than the lives of thousands of soldiers. Her own personal agenda just completely overrode any chance for peace, and that decision guaranteed this bloody war would just keep on going. But her meddling wasn't always so neat and tidy. As the war dragged on, Aphrodite was about to get a harsh lesson. Getting involved in mortal business has consequences, and for her, it was about to get very real. And very, very painful. Okay, so her next big moment comes when her own son, the Trojan hero Aeneas, is in deep trouble. He's cornered by this absolute beast of a Greek warrior, Diomedes, who is just on a tear. Seeing her son about to die, Aphrodite does what any mother would do, I guess. She doesn't think twice. She dives right down from Olympus, scoops Aeneas up in her robes, and tries to carry him off the battlefield herself. And this is where things get really interesting. See, her dad, Zeus, had basically told her, stick to what you know, your job is love and marriage, not war. But that's not what happened that day. Because Diomedes, with a little help from Athena, could actually see her.
He wasn't just fighting a mortal. He knew he was facing a goddess, and he went for it. He attacked.
I mean, he literally stabbed her. He ran his spear right through her hand. And for this one shocking moment, a goddess bleeds. Not blood, but ichor, the golden stuff that flows in the god's veins. She just shrieks, drops her son, and flees back to Olympus, totally humiliated. Apollo has to step in and finish the rescue. It was this brutal, humbling moment that showed her she wasn't untouchable down there.
But even after getting wounded, and frankly embarrassed in front of everyone, Aphrodite wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She just got smarter about it. She backed off from the front lines and started playing a different game, pulling strings behind the scenes, using politics, and of course, her ultimate weapon, desire.
So she had two major tools in her toolbox. First, there was her famous enchanted girdle, the one that made the wearer totally irresistible. And in a crazy twist, her rival Hera actually borrows it from her to seduce Zeus and distract him from the battle, which ironically ends up helping the Greeks. But then Aphrodite uses her own charm on her lover, Eris, the literal god of war, and gets him to switch sides and fight for the Trojans.
And that is what made her so dangerous. In a way, no other god was. You know, other gods had brute force or brilliant strategy. But Aphrodite, she wielded desire. And that power was so strong, it could make the god of war flip-flop on his promises and throw the entire divine game plan into chaos. It just goes to show you, love can be a way more unpredictable and messy weapon than any sword or spear.
All right, so now we're at the end game. The war is over. Troy is in flames. It's a total loss. But Aphrodite, she's still not finished. Her final job in all of this might just be her most important one yet, making sure something survives the wreckage. As the city is falling, her role changes. She's no longer a protector in the war, she's a protector of the future. When the great Trojan hero Hector is killed, she helps protect his body from being mutilated by Achilles, using this special rosy immortal oil to preserve it. But the biggest thing she does? She personally guides her son Aeneas and a handful of other survivors out of the burning city.
And that one act, saving her son, has consequences that will literally change the world. Because Aeneas doesn't just get away. He ends up traveling all the way to Italy. And his descendants, well, they're going to found a little city there. And that city becomes Rome. Yep, the entire Roman Empire traced its origins, its divine ancestry, right back to that moment, back to Aphrodite saving her son from the ashes of Troy. So think about the big picture here. With that final act of protection, Aphrodite took a complete and utter disaster, the fall of Troy, and turned it into the founding myth of the next great global superpower. She made sure that even though her city lost, its legacy, and by extension, her legacy, would live on for centuries.
Okay, so after all of that, the bribe, the rescues, the wound, the manipulation, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this tell us about Aphrodite's part in the Trojan War?
I think the number one thing is that she was so much more than just a pretty face on Mount Olympus. She was an active, powerful, and, let's be honest, a pretty dangerous force in history. Her personal feelings, her vanity, her loyalties, her love for her son, these weren't just little side plots. They were the main drivers of the whole story. These were the emotions that decided the fate of kingdoms and laid the groundwork for future empires.
And maybe that's the real lesson here, right? That love, especially in its most intense, possessive form, isn't just some passive feeling. It's a force of nature, a power that can start a war, cheat death, and build a new legacy from the ashes of a fallen one. It really proves that even when you're surrounded by the horrors of war, love is still in charge, a powerful, unpredictable, and absolute ruler.